I'm Shivani Gupta. I'm obsessed with small to medium businesses growing. As business owners, we take so much risk and we want to make sure it's worth it. I believe one of the best presents you can give yourself as a business owner is to be able to learn how to scale your people, your profit, and your processes. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Growing Your Business podcast. I'm Shivani Gupta. I'm your host. This is a topic that I get asked in coaching conversations all the time, and I thought I've got to do a podcast on this particular topic, and that is onboarding. What are the great practices when we are onboarding a new member into our team, irrespective of the size of that team, even if you're going from 1 to 2 or 20 to 23, whatever it might be. And I wanted to share with you some of the best practices I've seen, which is a combination of what I've seen in the corporate world, as well as what I've seen being practiced in small to medium businesses, and really tailoring it more for the SME market. So here are some tips. The first thing in a small to medium business as an owner, when we're bringing somebody new in, and as a leader, is to make sure that we've got a personalized welcome. There is nothing better, even if you've got a team of 75 people, when the boss, which might be you, that rings that new employee and talks about how much they're welcomed into the team. We get them a little welcome package. It might be something simple like a drink bottle or your corporate pen or pencil, or something small. But more importantly, I find what's really working is the handwritten note. Having a little handwritten note that says welcome to the team. We see this when we go to different hotels, and we see how that personalized thing written by the manager or somebody that was on duty that cleaned your room, that lets you know what their name is. It's just that beautiful personalized welcome. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is how do we make that first entry for that new person onboarding really streamlined? How do we do that from an administrative perspective? So, for example, whether it's completing paperwork, and it might be for getting their details about their about their super fund, it might be setting up their email account. It might be just working out what's necessary in terms of the tools and systems that they're going to need, and how can we actually put that together. The best systems I've seen in small to medium businesses is where people have done videos and they can just go and watch as if they were doing a course in terms of how to get all the different things set up, and automating as many of those processes properly, so you don't have to have a human involved in every single time. So just making sure that initial touch point, I've seen people wait 3 or 4 weeks for a laptop. That's crazy. That's not a streamlined administrative process from a systems point of view. And it makes somebody go, wow, I'm kind of here and I don't even have a computer. So doing that. The third thing, even though you've already advertised, even though you've interviewed them and you've offered them the position, is to really go back and do the clear role expectations. Why do we want to do that? Because it just says, hey, I know you've now joined the team. Let's go over what it is that we said that you were going to be able to do. Talk about their role, talk about their responsibilities, talk about what's expected from a performance perspective. Let them know that you've got their back and that you're going to be providing them lots of guidance, and you'll be that sounding board or a number of people in your team that'll help them do that. Make sure you've got a detailed job description. Hopefully you've already done all of this when you advertise for the role and you made that position description available, but you want to get through that, and you also want to be able to get that to them. And I always think that it's so important at that point, from an onboarding perspective, show them how their role fits into the bigger picture for the department, for the organization, and for that business, and how that links into the bigger values and what the business really stands for. The second part is training and mentorship. When somebody's onboarding, often they need some training in different parts, and it might be company policies, it might be certain procedures and systems that they need to know, or there could be some very specific training required for them to be able to do their job. So it's really important to be able to make sure that they've got that support in them. And there's a lot of research coming out. I'm just in the process of writing a book, and I've been doing some research in there that when you pair somebody up with a buddy or a mentor / somebody they can bounce ideas off, then that is going to be really, really fantastic in terms of that person, in terms of retention, and somebody that can go when they don't want to go to their manager or you as the founder or leader, and they can just go and talk to them about how to navigate through their new role. We also want to introduce the company culture to the onboarding part. And how do we do that? Well, we want to re-emphasize the values, how we bring them in, how do we live and breathe them, what happens when we don't do them, who can call you out. We also want to encourage, people to get involved in team meetings and activities, and also the socials, to be able to help them, make them feel like that they're actually part of the team as well. And we want to keep making sure that we keep our communication channels open, particularly as the onboarding part. You let them know that. You say to them that there's no such thing as a really silly question. Ask as many questions that you need. Make sure you share feedback. If there's something that's concerning you, behavior-wise, process-wise, please let me know, so that people go, wow, this is a safe place, and I can actually bring up the different things that I need to in order for me to be able to do my role really well. And sometimes those open communication channels are best not done in a bigger group, particularly for a new employee. So we didn't want to have a group of 30 people in that room and say, anybody got any feedback on that? Somebody new is unlikely to feel comfortable enough, unless they've done that role many times before, which is often not the case, to be able to voice that. So sometimes that's great, particularly for the first few weeks while they get their confidence and get to know people around them, is to be able to ask for some of that one-on-one feedback, or maybe even have an anonymous system, whatever system that you've got it in, but really great to be able to sort of check in with them, making sure that that's happening. That leads me to the next one. It's so important to do frequent check-ins. In the first week, I would imagine that their one-up person or their manager would be doing check-ins on a daily basis. Hey, how are you going? How was your day? What do you need? It could be that, depending on the size of the business, that manager or founder or leader might actually be doing some of the training as well. So they might be wearing two hats, a trainer's hat, as well as the hat of the leader in the business. So just making sure that there's lots of check-ins, making sure they've got the support. If they've got any questions, again, being able to answer them one-on-one. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is opportunities for growth. Now, somebody onboarding is so key to learn that role, but they're also starting to think, okay, like I've met such and such, and they're in that senior role. So just talk to them about the fact that there's lots of opportunities in the business. Obviously, as they get to know their role and they start to do and perform their role really well, that they're so welcome once they've settled into that role in a few months to sit down and talk about other opportunities that might exist in the business. I know when I did this with a number of my team members, a number of them approached me, and they actually then became somebody that we spent a little bit more time mentoring and coaching and training up, so that if there was the gap in the business, then we could actually get that in. And I talk a lot about succession planning in businesses around not just having a plan A, but also having a plan B and C. You also want to encourage collaboration between the people. And the best way to do that is by facilitating interactions between somebody new, employee, and also some people that have been there perhaps for a little while. So you want to get them meeting and linking up with people from different areas, and they can actually shadow them, get to understand their role a little bit more, so they understand the piece that they're working on and how that fits into the broader piece of what occurs as well. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about is continuous improvement. Onboarding, doesn't matter how good your onboarding process is, has always got room for innovation, has always got room for improvement. And one of the things that you want to do is continually look at how you get that feedback and be able to build that in so that it's a better experience for them. There is a lot of research that talks about that when the onboarding is done right, some magic happens, and we often tend to disengage people in the first 3 months or so, which onboarding is crucial in getting that part right. So I hope as a small to medium business owner, as an owner or as a leader within that business, you've got a couple of ideas in terms of what you do really well for the onboarding, and perhaps a couple of ideas that you could do to improve the onboarding experience for your new people. Onboarding also works if you've got people that are moving into another area, another department, and almost treat that person, not, oh, you've been here for 2.5 years, but almost do the onboarding for that as if they're new, and really apply some of those practices, and their retention and their productivity and their engagement and their ability to really be able to settle into that role will increase exponentially. And onboarding, when done right, is magic. Onboarding, when done poorly, results in disengagement at a very early stage, and then it's very difficult to get them re-engaged. Thanks for tuning in. Any ideas that you have, any thoughts and feedback, I would love if you could take a moment and rate or review the podcast on Apple. And thanks very much for tuning in. I'm Shivani Gupta, and you've been listening to the Grow Your Business podcast. I hope you got one idea that you can think about or perhaps even implement straight away in your business. Thank you for listening. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn under Ask Shivani. Remember, I call it Ask Shivani, so please send me your questions, that I can address in this podcast for you. And I would also so appreciate if you went to the Apple Podcast to rate and review this podcast.